Good evening, we're live and it's 5:25 here at Channel 17 Town Meeting Television, where we have been focusing on the 2018 general elections. In fact, we've been focusing on them not only throughout the month of October, where we hosted 31 debates and 100 candidates, but also throughout the primary. So tonight is a big night as we look forward to Election Day, and that is tomorrow, the 6th of November, and we hope that you have had the opportunity or will have the opportunity to vote, because of course that is a great privilege that we all share, and it's very important. Even though you may feel like it doesn't matter, it does, and there's some really important races. So I'm going to recap some of those races that we're watching here at Channel 17, and tomorrow night at 7:30 we will go live with our election results program. This is an election results program we've been doing since 1990 when we started Channel 17, so that's about 28 years ago. And we were in a smaller studio with a smaller staff, but it was equally exciting. So we're glad you're here to join us. If you have any comments or questions or anything you want to raise here on the program for the next few minutes, feel free to call us at 862-3966. We're always glad to hear from our old friends and new here at Channel 17 Town Meeting Television. So tomorrow night, Diane Meyerhoff and Shay Totten will be here to talk about the election results, and we will be bringing live footage, live streaming interviews from the campaign parties. That is, the Republicans and the Democrats will be meeting here in Burlington to review the results and celebrate the outcomes, and the Progressives will also be in Burlington, I believe at Felino's, to be looking at the results and celebrating the outcomes. So for governor, we're looking at a race with Governor Phil Scott, the incumbent, and he's being challenged by Christine Hallquist, a Democrat, and also a slate of other independent and third-party candidates, many of whom have been very vocal about being included or not included in the debates that were sponsored by various media organizations. Of course, here at Channel 17, we invite everyone, and so we had some very interesting forums with the candidates for governor in all the statewide and local races. So the statewide races include the governor's race, lieutenant governor. We have David Zuckerman, who is our incumbent, being challenged by Don Turner, who is the House Minority Leader and also the town manager of Milton. He's been running a fairly spirited campaign, bringing his family on the campaign trail, and they are the top two folks that we are going to be watching. And then we go down to some of the other statewide races, which include Secretary of State. Jim Condos is running, and let's just have a look at who he's running against. You know, the language of elections is an interesting one. Peter Diamondstone, the late great Peter Diamondstone, Liberty Union candidate, perennial candidate who passed over this past year, always said, we aren't running races and we're not running for elections. So the words sometimes are hard to find as alternatives, and I tend to agree with that, but we're going to be using the verbs running and competing against. So as I mentioned, Secretary of State Jim Condos is being challenged by Mary Alice Hebert, who is, again, a longstanding Liberty Union Party member. We have the State Treasurer, Beth Pierce, who is a Democrat, and she is running against Richard Morton, a Republican. I don't think he was able to make it to one of our debates. And of course, you can watch if you want to get educated fast, take a crash course tonight or tomorrow. You can, of course, come to our website or our YouTube channel on Channel 17 and Channel 17 TV, ch17.tv, and watch all of these forums because, as I said, we've had them all on. All right, so the Attorney General, T.J. Donovan, the incumbent Democrat, is being challenged by Rosemary Jakowski of Liberty Union and Jansen Wilhoit from a Republican. Now, the races that we really are concerned about and look at here, of course, the statewide races, there's no question, but there are the countywide races. And let me just mention, I did forget that there is a U.S. Senate election and a congressional election. And Peter Welch is our incumbent congressman, a Democrat, and he is being challenged by Chris Erickson, an independent, who's also running for governor. Laura Potter, Liberty Union candidate, and Anya Tinio, a Republican. Sorry about that. And then, of course, Senator Bernie Sanders is running for a 6-year term for re-election. He's running as an independent. although I imagine he will be at the Democratic Party tomorrow night. And he is being challenged by a series of people. Folasade Adeluola, an independent, Russell Bestie, an independent, Bruce Busa, independent, Ed Gilbert, independent, Reed Kane, Liberty Union, Brad Peacock, independent, John Svitotsky, independent, and Lawrence Zupan, a Republican. So they were all here, Channel 17, so you can watch them if you'd like. So as I was saying, the state Senate, the state level, the county level races are the ones that we are particularly concerned with here in the Burlington area, the Chittenden County region. And there are 6 state Senate positions open. They're currently occupied by Democrats, and they're being challenged by 7 additional combination of Republicans and independents. And so when you go into the polling booth, you're going to see 13 names. Some of them you will be familiar with, and others that may seem entirely new to you. So that's the state Senate race. And then, of course, probate judge and assistant judge, which are the 2 other competitive county races. For probate judge, the incumbent, Gregory Glennon, he's a Democrat, is being challenged by Bill Norful as a Republican, and that may seem odd to you that Bill Norful, who is a former Democratic mayor of Winooski, would be running as a Republican, but he did not win the primary, and so he opted to run again as a Republican. So that will be a race to watch. Along with assistant judges, similar thing happened. We call them side judges or assistant judges. These are folks that work a lot with family court, and they help the judges work on a variety of processes. And we have 2 incumbents currently, Charlie Delaney and Connie Kane Ramsey, and they, well, what happened, this is what happened, is that Charlie Delaney and Connie Kane Ramsey ran with against Suzanne Brown, who's running as a Democrat, and Zachary York, who's running as, I think, a progressive. And I should know that, as signs are everywhere. And Charlie Delaney and Zachary York got knocked out of the primary, the Democratic primary, and have opted to run, not as Democrats in this election, but Charlie Delaney is a progressive Republican and Zachary York as a progressive. So they've both been endorsed by the progressives. And so that will be an interesting race to watch. And then, of course, we have Kevin McLaughlin, who is running unopposed as sheriff, and Daniel Gamlin, who is running unopposed as high bailiff, and Sarah George, who is running unopposed as state's attorney. I'm not seeing, oh, it must be at the bottom of this. These are long ballots. These are super long ballots. Now, there are House races all over the county, and there are several contested ones. And the ones that I can speak to just off the top of my head include in Williston, we have the incumbents there, Terry McKegg and Jim McCullough, who are being challenged by Kathleen O'Ryan and Joy Limoges. And if you remember, maybe you do, 2 years ago, Joy Limoges came within just a few hundred votes of unseating one of those 2 Democratic incumbents. Joy's running as a Republican, so that will be an interesting race to watch. In Winooski, it's not exactly a contested race, but it certainly will be one that takes a little time to get the results on, because we have Deanna Gonzalez, who is a progressive Democrat, and she was the seatmate with Clem Bissonette, a longtime Democrat from former mayor, I believe, of Winooski, who decided once his name was on the ballot for various reasons not to run. And so Hal Colston is stepping in as a write-in candidate. Hal Colston also did this in the Winooski City Council and won that race last March. And that write-in of Hal Colston will be interesting to see if he gets more votes than Clem Bissonette, who's on the ballot. And also, just so everybody knows, because it's a write-in, it will probably slow down the Burlington results as we gather them, because part of that district is in Ward 1 of Burlington and part of it is in Winooski. So those will take a little longer to count. I understand that many of the absentee ballots were counted today in polling places all across the state. The early voting numbers have been quite high, and that's very exciting that we have such high participation, or let's hope that we have high participation. And sometimes those absentee ballots are done on election day, and they tend to slow down the results tallies after 7 o'clock. So in Essex, there are also a couple of contested races that are important to pay attention to. Linda Myers, who has been in the seat for Essex, I think since 2001. I have my notes right here. She's in a three-way race for 2 seats. So there are 2 seats in District 8-1 in Essex. Linda Myers is the incumbent, and there are 2 new faces, Mary Beth Redmond, who's running as a fresh voice, and Tanya Viofsky. She's running as a progressive Democrat, and she's an Essex native and a social worker. And then in 8-2, there's 2 incumbents, Dylan Giambattista, who's a Democrat, he's a first-termer, and Lori Houghton, who's a Democrat. She's also a first-termer. They're being challenged by John Brennan, who is, he's run before, he says, but I couldn't find when, so maybe somebody out there might remember that. In Colchester, there's also 2 contested races. In Colchester 9-1, Jim Condon, former representative and good friend of ours who passed away this year, very sadly, his seat is open. And Kurt Taylor, who's the Democrat, is faced by Seth Chase, Democrat, and 2 Republican challengers, Desiree Morin and Clark Sweeney, both Republicans. And in District 9-2, Maureen Dakin is stepping down after many years of service, I think 21 years. And Patrick Brennan is running for re-election. And there are 3 other candidates. Pam Laranger, who won the nomination in the primary. She had a write-in vote, and she beat the folks that were on the ballot, but there was a recount. It was very dramatic. And then Herb Downing, who's a longtime Colchester resident, and Sarita Austin, they're both running as Democrats. And then in Milton, that's a race that was not that familiar to me, but there's an incumbent, Chris Matos, who's a Republican, and he is, there's 2 seats, and John Palasek and Todd Buick are running also to get one of those 2 seats, or all 3 of them 2 seats. In Grand Isle, Mitzi Johnson, who is the head of the House, there's a word for that, it's escaping me at the moment, she's the Speaker of the House. She is being opposed by 2 cousins who are related to Don Turner in Milton. And so Judge Ben Joseph, who's a regular here on our show, and Mitzi Johnson, those are the 2 incumbents, and then there's 2 others who are specifically trying to unseat Mitzi Johnson on, I think, gun control legislation is one of their issues, among other topics. In Heinsberg, Bill Lippert, who's the head of the House Judiciary Committee, is being challenged also by a Sarah Toscana, who is particularly concerned on gun rights issues, and that's what inspired her to vote. So we'll be watching that as well. And then let's just see what else we've got. Oh, in Burlington, of course, we have 6 races, but only 1 is contested, and that's in the new North End. That's Wards 4 and Ward 7 will be voting on that, where Kurt Wright, the incumbent Republican, just endorsed by the Democratic mayor of Burlington, is running with first-term legislator Carol Odie, who's a Democrat, and Bob Hooper, who's a Democrat, and there are 2 seats open there. And then in South Burlington, John Kalaki, former executive director of the Flynn Theater, and is running as a Democrat, and Frank Davis is running as a progressive for Helen Head's seat. Helen Head had that seat, I think, since 2003. And I mentioned Williston. So I think that we have touched on all the major races that we are watching here. And of course, there's some ballot questions, and the ballot questions are always interesting and certainly important. And the most important ones, really, I am saying most important because they loom the largest as a Burlington taxpayer. And the first is approval to issue bonds for the high school. And I think that's a 66 2/3% vote that's needed for the general obligation bond to improve Burlington High School. And then there are revenue bonds for improving the wastewater and stormwater utility projects. And that adds up to about $100 million. So it'll be interesting to see how Burlington voters vote on those. They're fairly expensive legacy capital projects that will unfold over many years. In Winooski, there's a simple ballot question that has to do with giving some flexibility around the time and the date of the school district's annual meeting, so that would be a change. And then in South Burlington, there are several interrelated ballot questions that have to do with moving the municipal office to a new downtown location in City Center and leasing that property to the school district. And then the school district has related ballot questions that allow them to take up the lease. So there's sort of this land swap in South Burlington. In Richmond, there is a ballot question to adopt the town plan. And I think there is one other one, but let me just see if I have those here. Yep, I do. Colchester, to authorize Colchester School District to convey land parcel to the town. So those are really the ballot questions we will also be watching here in Chittenden County. So once again, our election results program starts tomorrow night at 7:30. Here we'll be live with interviews from the Democratic and Republican parties in Burlington. And we will also have in Studio B our commentators on the state and national elections, Brady Tenzing and Kevin Ellis, who give a good counterbalance to what's happening nationally, which of course the midterm elections are in many people's minds, and what the outcomes of those are. There are many governor's races and countless House and Senate races, and we'll see what the composition of the Congress is as a result of the elections tomorrow night. And Kevin and Brady will be talking about that. And of course here in Studio A we will have Diane Meyerhoff, who leads our results. She'll be joined by Shay Totten and then Seth Leonard and some others over the course of the evening. So we really hope that you will tune in and watch the elections, and you can go to ch17.tv to look at our election results, because we will be collecting those results as we report them. We will be reporting those results as we collect them here with the help of clerks and poll watchers all across Chittenden County, with whom we could not do this program. So we are very grateful to the probably 24 people that helped make our results program a reality. And I'd just like to give a very warm thank you to the staff here at Channel 17 Town Meeting Television, who have provided such incredible and extensive coverage, and to the candidates who have willingly come on the air and talked about what it is that is important to them. It is quite moving as a moderator to be at a table with candidates, some experienced and some not so experienced, who are willing to say what they think and stand behind it as a matter of political principle. It's very powerful to hear that and see that, and we are very appreciative that we can help keep the wheels of democracy turning. We think of ourselves as the grease monkeys of democracy. So thanks so much for watching, and thanks Kevin for being in the booth, and we'll see you tomorrow night at 7:30 here at Channel 17 Town Meeting Television.